Alright, so before we get started, again, chapter 3, you guys got any questions in understanding what you're doing in the labs? Okay, ask.
Just kidding. I kind of get it. After you truncate, you have that.
Okay, so in this chapter here, we're kind of a little bit ahead of the game. I mean, you're setting stuff up that won't fully work until we get into chapter 5. Again, when you set up a switch with VLANs, what do VLANs create for $14 million? Broadcast domains. Yeah, you didn't want the money anyways. And I would have gave it to you too if you got it. No, I wouldn't. I don't have it. If I'd had it. I had like 89,000 million.
So I should have knew that.
Making
Cool.
up numbers.
I'd take that too.
Yeah. Anyhow, okay. So, a switch configured with VLANs creates broadcast domains. You might see that again. That'd be a big hint tomorrow. Alright. So now, how do you know? Well, we have VLANs, different VLANs, right? So we have each VLAN requires its own, not necessarily IP address, but subnet. Because remember, there can only be one interface on a switch that has an IP address assigned to it. And that's the, what interface?
The native?
No, well, you're close. Remember SVI, Switch Virtual Interface, which is your native VLAN. Whatever one you want it to be, 99, 1, 2, 5, 8, 15, doesn't matter. Okay? So only one can have an IP address. So, but the other VLANs, anybody that's attached to those, they will have a particular network in whatever range. Alright? Now, for the other $1 million question. So, if you've got a switch with 4 VLANs and 4 PCs plugged in, one each VLAN, will they be able to communicate with each other? Yes or no?
No.
No, they will not. Okay, what is needed to allow them to communicate with each other? A layer 3 device. Here, watch. And for you guys, I'm going to make them color coordinated.
Are they going to smell good?
Yes, we got green apple and we got cherry.
You make no combination?
No, it's over there. Alright, each one of those represents a particular VLAN configured. Right? Oh, I better make, and then
With the cords.
black ports indicate they're unassigned. They're not assigned to any VLAN currently. Alright? Now,
Bilingual.
no.
Hey, race is a good black one.
Nothing more dangerous than a teacher with multiple colored markers and a whiteboard. No, just kidding. Alright, so the labs had you do 2 switches, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's what we've got. So we got 2 separate switches, each configured with 3 VLANs, and then some unallocated. It could be the HR, sales, and management. It really doesn't matter, but they've got VLANs configured. Now, so if we've got PCs plugged into each one of these, if there's 3 PCs here, 3 here, 3 here, who can communicate? One's connected to the same VLANs. Alright, but they will not be able to communicate with other VLANs. Alright, now, got 2 separate switches. Got the same VLANs configured on this switch as we do this switch. If there's nothing plugged into here, will they be able to communicate from here to here?
I would say no.
No, because there's no trunk cable. That's where the trunk cable comes into play. All a trunk cable does is it allows the VLAN information from one VLAN to carry over to another switch. And it does that by tagging it. It tags it with the VLAN ID. That's how it's able to, and the trunk ports will allow VLAN information from this VLAN, this one, and this one to travel to communicate with their respective VLAN on another switch. Alright? That's all we do. And what kind of cable do we use if we plug a switch to a switch?
Crossover.
Crossover cable. And then we configure it as a trunk. Once we do that, PCs here, we'll be able to communicate with PCs here. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. Now, if we do this command, alright, if we do that command, let's say this is
Funny. And the thought.
I changed it. It's VLAN 30. That's what, yeah.
Yeah, we're always wrong. I know.
Yeah. And same thing here.
Quit.
Hold on.
Alright, and usually the ID, the VLAN ID corresponds to whatever network. Alright? And then of course it can have a name, HR sales, it really doesn't matter. So, what we've got is, we've got VLAN 99, name, management, IP address, no shut. So we actually have an IP address in there, and it's usually going to be the, we'll say 192.168.1.99 or 99.0 network. Keep it simple. Usually the addressing they use is just like that. They keep it pretty simple. Alright, so it's on the 99.0 network. So, a PC connected to VLAN 10, will it be able to get to the switch? Because it's on a different VLAN. Now when we get into chapter 5, we throw a router in there, yes, but not until then. So, but if we throw a PC in here on VLAN 99, it will be able to get to the switch because it's on the same network. So initially when we started doing the whole management, all the ports by default are assigned to VLAN 1, right? We assign an IP address to VLAN 1, right? And guess what? Once you got an IP address on the PC, it can communicate with the switch IP address, correct? And then the second lab, it had you create VLAN 99 initially, but it didn't have you assign any ports to it, right? And then the port, of course, when you do show IP interface brief, VLAN 99 would show line protocol down because there's no ports assigned to it, right? So in order to communicate, at least in this here, you have to have the ports assigned to the VLAN 99. But once we add a router into the mix, we can route between the different VLANs, then you don't have to. But until then, you do. So as part of this lab, important thing is to understand, you know, looking at the addresses and say, wait a minute, they're on different networks. And I was pointing that out as I was checking the labs yesterday. You need to make sure. So there was 2 parts that were wrong with that one lab. One is they're on different networks except for the 2 PCs. And the other thing is trunks haven't been configured yet. That was the other thing. And of course, usually in both labs, I think there was one PC that was limbo because it was a different network And that was it. So it had no communication with anything until we get a router in there. All right? Got it? Now, trunks. A couple of you guys, well, a couple of them in my afternoon class, I don't know if the configurations were on there or what. The 2960s, some of them are a little smarter than they should be. Meaning, they had a crossover cable connected between them, and they were automatically trunking without any configuration. I don't know for sure if it was remnant in RAM or whatever, so it's very important after the class, once you clear them, you turn them off. Right? So I'm not sure, but so normally, like I said, you can't get from 10 to 10 until you configure this port. If all it is just cable, generally it doesn't work on its own. It requires you to configure it. Remember the commands to configure the trunk? Let's say this is, I don't know, let's say it's GI0/1. Okay? So we got to do what?
Which port?
Only if you have more than one. The only time you have to do the range if you have more than one. If you just got one port, that's it. So INT GI0/1, and we've already configured this as our native VLAN, right? And here's the other thing. Trunk ports, this is part of the other lab. By default, a trunk port is set to trunk on native VLAN 1. So you start configuring one of them for anything other than one, you get messages, and that's part of the lab too. It wanted you to see those. So we do INT, then we do what?
Which port? Trunk, native VLAN, etc.
Not yet.
Switch port mode access.
All right, again, a switch port can be one of two. It can be access or trunk. That's it. Can't be both. I've seen that yesterday, either you guys or the next class. They put both commands in there. It's one or the other. If it's a trunk port, it's switch port mode trunk. Now, by default, it's set for on. There's 4 trunking modes, DTP, Dynamic Trunking Protocol. There's dynamic desirable. Make sure you read through them and understand them. And all it is if both of them are set to off, it won't trunk, right? One of the modes in the second lab, it has you set to non-negotiate. What that means is, if you set a trunk port or a port to non-negotiate, you can never plug another switch in and trunk with it. It's a security feature or function, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is have someone, because if someone can take and gain access to a switch port, plug their evil switch into it, and have it trunk, they can do all kinds of stuff. So you set the ports to non-negotiate or just disable them and you got it covered. All right? So switch port mode trunk. I think that's the right syntax, isn't it? I always forget from class to class.
Native.
It's either native VLAN 99, is it native?
VLAN.
Yeah, native is first. One of these I'll remember it.
It's trunk native.
Yeah, native.
VLAN 99.
And then of course, don't forget this command. No shut. Because usually most of the labs say, turn off all the ports. Well, that's fine. It's for security. But then you forget to turn them on. You've got to do the no shut. Now, if I was on this switch and just configured this command, it's going to start popping up with all kinds of messages saying native VLAN mismatch. Because this port here is set for VLAN 1. Not the end of the world. You just got to go over to the other switch and set it up. That's where I was talking about. If you configure them first without this cable, you won't get that message. But the lab wants you to cable them, and then so you get the message, so you understand what's going on. Now, if I give you a custom lab in the future, configure it and then cable it, and you're way to go. No problem. All right? Questions? So again, once we configure the trunk, then the 10s can communicate with the 10s, the 30s and 30s. All right, now, there's another command to this. You guys remember what it is? And whatever.
Gotta be a space between the columns too.
Is there? There might be.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Some of them you might, but you got to do allowed VLANs. Okay, again, when you set up a trunk port, by default, it will trunk all VLANs on the switch. So you don't need that command. All right? But if you want to just restrict, you can do that. In the unlikely event or whatever that it doesn't, you'll have to add that. How would you know if it's trunking all VLANs? What show command would you use? Show interface trunk. It will say allowed VLANs. If it says 1, that'd be a problem, right? If we've got 4 VLANs on there. Show interface trunk.
So how do, when you get that message, and it comes up, that message, what does that message mean?
Which one?
The mismatch.
You just have to, it just means one's set for 99 trunking, the other one's set for 1. You just got to go to the other switch and configure it, and you'll be fine. So, show interface trunk. What's another command? Another show command. Really helpful when you start creating VLANs and stuff.
VLAN brief.
You can. You should show VLAN brief or just show VLAN. It will show all your VLANs and which ports are assigned to which ones. I've seen that. You guys had problems. The other thing I've seen between the two classes is you inadvertently were configuring one switch. Sometimes my little tags get moved around, so if you keep one on top, 2, 3, you're usually fine, but you start mixing around, be configuring one switch. Why isn't this working? Well, you're configuring one that doesn't have anything plugged into it. That happened a couple times.
Damn, they switching the tables.
Okay. All right. So, anybody have any questions on that?
So once you're doing the allow command, will that disable the ones that you don't allow? Because you said the default.
Right.
they're all
If
allowed.
by default all are there, if you say allowed VLAN 99, then yeah, that's it. That's the only one that would allow to trunk. Then VLAN 10 would no longer be able to communicate with VLAN 10 on the other switch, even though they're trunked together. Yep. There might be instances where you wouldn't, but generally you'd probably want. Because this could be, you know, different floors. That way it makes moving people around real easy, because all you have to do is reallocate this switch for this port, and that's fine. You don't have to move any equipment. That's another one of the questions, advantage of VLANs. Cost, big time. Cost and security. You don't have to recable anything. You just go in there and go, make this port a member of this one. You don't have to move anything. You don't have to go into the wiring closet, unplug them there and plug them over there. Just go into the switch and reassign a port from one VLAN to another. You're done. Real easy. Simple as if someone was moving from over here over to the other end of the building. All I got to do is reassign the switch port to whatever VLAN and we're fine. We don't have to cable anything or anything. Okay? I think that's about it, unless you guys got any questions. Anything? Not sure of?
If you have like
Sure,
a
yeah, sure.
port, and you disable that port from the, like, non-switch port access,
Mm-hmm.
but you're inside of that interface for that port, will that just disable that port?
Yeah, well, if you remove if you do a no switch port mode access or switch port access VLAN, whatever, it takes it out of that VLAN. Or if you delete the VLAN. If you delete the VLAN, then the ports, if I remember right, one scenario, they go back to VLAN 1, and one of them it doesn't. I can't remember which one off the top of my
You just
head.
wanted to remove one port, that's how you would do it.
or just reassign it to another VLAN. You know, just go into it, because a port can be only a member of one VLAN. And it can either be access or trunk, not both. So, got to remember that. All right. Any other questions? Nope. All right. I think that's it. So, labs.